My name is Parker.
Hey guys, I'm Seid.
Mike.
I'm Jake, and this is the Try Hards podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to a very exciting podcast episode. You guys better strap yourselves in. Today, we are going to be bringing you not one, but two very exciting and both actually positive race recaps. This doesn't happen very often, but last week we had athlete Jake Drumheller and not only an athlete, but also co-host Mike May race. Jake did 70.3 Sandusky, Ohio, and Mike raced at Ironman Lake Placid. So today they are going to be recapping the races for you guys. Seid and I are going to be putting our detective hats on, or question hats on, I guess, asking questions for the both of them, whatever pops up. We did have two listener questions or follower questions, both of them related to nutrition, which I'm sure they will be talking about what they fueled with, how they fueled for all three of the disciplines. But that's about it for the intro. Don't want to take up too much longer because the rest is going to be very exciting. And so, Jake, if you want to start us off with, feel free week leading up to the race, or if you just want to dive into race morning, however you want to do your race recap, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Well, I think to get the big picture, you're going to have to go listen to the race recap of Eagleman. So if you haven't already, I'm going to
I'll
plug
link that in the
episode.
description
So
box of this episode, so make sure to go listen to that if you haven't already.
go listen to that. Me, Mike, and Ezra talked about our recap for Eagleman. Um, I did not have a very good race. I actually um, had a pretty terrible race. And a couple things leading up to that race led to that. One, I think the big thing is I slept in a tent the night before the race, and it was like 80 degrees. And I just was just sweating all night. So that already put me at a disadvantage. Two, I didn't take my classic pre-race banana picture in transition. Big mistake. Um, and then also I think just leading into that race, I wasn't in the mindset of like this is a 70.3. Like it's almost like I didn't have respect for the distance kind of coming into it because I was like, oh, coming off an Ironman, this is, not as much as what it could be. So maybe I wasn't mentally prepared to race the distance either. Well, anyways, I was disappointed with how I performed, so I signed up for Sandusky 70.3. Um, and the 6 weeks or so leading up to the race, well, also I had a reoccurring foot injury come up during Eagleman. I should also say that. Um, so the 6 weeks leading up to Sandusky, I was going to physical therapy to kind of get my foot settled. Um, and I was, you know, taking training more like I was what is the word I'm looking for? Maybe Parker, I was kind of taking my training.
Not
Is the word?
relaxed, but you were taking not as seriously. You're not beating yourself up too much if you weren't getting the sessions in, or not necessarily not getting the sessions in, but like when we had that call, maybe cutting the workout a little short or listening to your body more. I think you're just in a better headspace mentally, balancing training with everything else going on in your life.
Yeah. So I think part of that was definitely the foot injury. I didn't want to aggravate that again because I'd been in a boot for 2 weeks in the fall because of the same injury. And knowing if that was to happen, then I just wasted, entry fee on Sandusky to be injured instead of actually racing it. So I was really listening to myself. I was, you know, cutting my workouts back if I needed to. Um, and like things just felt really, really great, like all around. Like training was fitting into my life. I wasn't feeling like I was, overextending myself to get things done. So coming into Sandusky, we did a 1 week taper, which is something that we haven't done before. And I was feeling so great. Like I had so much energy. I was so excited to race where I guess coming into Eagleman, I felt kind of like flat. I wasn't as motivated the second week of the taper. Um, and like my body just didn't feel like it was ready to race. Where, last week I was ready to get after it, felt like a tiger. Um,
Jake
and
wanted to go maul something.
yeah, I was about a maul a toddler or something. I was, but no one was mauled.
Except that
So except for that banana. So leading up to like the taper was great leading up to Sandusky. And then I stayed in a hotel. I splurged on a hotel so I didn't have to sleep in a tent. I got a good night's sleep. Um, and you know, I'll talk about race morning now, I guess. I won't talk about, my sleep or anything. But race morning, I woke up, had a bowl of oatmeal, banana. Woke up at 3:15. Transition, well, race start was 6:30, so that gave me about a little over 3 hours to kind of get ready, get settled. Um,
What did you have for your pre-race dinner?
Pre-race dinner was spaghetti and meatballs.
Good call. No Subway or sushi or anything like that.
Nope. I
Good.
almost I almost got something bad, but I didn't. Um, I'm not gonna say because Parker's gonna get mad at me. No, I was just kidding. Um, so sorry, where I was.
Breakfast.
Breakfast, yeah. So, I had my usual, had some electrolytes. Um, and then in transition, I take my normal banana picture. My girlfriend, and this is the key to my success. Every race that I haven't taken a .5 banana picture, I haven't done too hot. So this was the key to my success on the day. Unfortunately, my girlfriend, she wasn't at the race. This was my first race that I traveled alone for. So I had to ask a stranger in transition to take the banana picture for
If you
me.
guys are wondering what this banana picture is, go look on Jake's Instagram. He has it. Maybe we'll make it the thumbnail of this podcast episode. I'll see if I can do that. Jake, send that to me and I'll see what I like to do together.
So I was standing at transition, banana in my hand, cell phone in the other hand, looking around, like, okay, who am I gonna ask to take this picture who will like not be weirded out by it? So I turn and look, and there's like this guy with a mullet and a mustache, who looks like a total bro who's like around our age. And I'm like, hey dude, so normally my girlfriend does this. She wanted a picture. Could you take a .5 picture for me? And he's like, yeah, dude, I got you. So I just sat there, banana, like posing for this picture.
Watch, I bet you that guy's gonna be listening to this podcast. He's like, oh, that makes so much more sense now.
No, I explained it to him. I was like, hey, so this is
Yeah.
weird, but I hope he's listening. But so anyways, Parker will make that the thumbnail, hopefully, so y'all can see that. Um, all right, but I'll cut to the real good stuff, okay? Um, so lining up for the swim start, I see to myself about um like a couple, maybe 5 rows back from the very front swimmers. And actually someone posted on Facebook all the data to see where you seated yourself versus like where you got into the water and how you exited, like what was the time gap. And my time gap was 1 second, meaning I seated myself perfectly. Like some people seated themselves like a minute and 30 or 3 minutes. So like meaning that they should have seated themselves back. I don't really know how he pulled that data, but it was really, really interesting to see because I didn't get past very much. I didn't pass anyone. I was able to find some feet for a little bit. So it was like a very solid swim. It was wetsuit legal, but I didn't bring my wetsuit and I swam in my swim skin. It was
Wait, really
just
quickly before you go on, I have to make this because you're now my second athlete in the span of two or 3 weeks to do this, or maybe a month. But anyway, for everyone listening out there, always bring your wetsuit to a race. Even though Jake wasn't planning on wearing his wetsuit, regardless if it was or wasn't wetsuit legal. But it's happened quite a few times now where people have said, "Oh, it's not going to be wetsuit legal." And then my athletes, like Jake and Rob was the other athlete, they said it's not going to be wetsuit legal. I don't even want to bring my wetsuit. And well, lo and behold, it's wetsuit legal. The magical fairies always come and dump ice buckets the morning of. We have this at Lake Placid too. It dropped 2 degrees overnight. So always bring your wetsuit to a race. All right, Jake.
yeah, but I should probably say like the reason why I wasn't planning to wear a wetsuit anyways
Mm-hmm.
was the temperature was so high in the weeks leading up to the race or the days leading up to the race that the water temperature was like 78. And even if it was wetsuit legal, I knew it was gonna be super, super close. So I figured I would rather take, the couple extra seconds that a wetsuit's gonna save me and swim in a swim skin and not, fatigue my shoulders because the wetsuit just never agrees with my shoulders. Um, and also I knew I was gonna overheat if I was in a wetsuit at like 75.9 degrees, which I believe was the water temperature. So I decided to, regardless, go with a swim skin. I ended up swimming 29, 40 something. I'll actually pull up I'll make sure I have my times next to me so that I ended up swimming um 29:49, which is pretty solid. I was very happy with that. Granted, it was a lake. It was in Lake Erie. There was no current. It's a very,
It's a true swim.
real, huh?
It's a true swim. It's a true
Yeah, it's a
semi.
very true 1.2 mile swim. Um, so I was happy with that. Came out of the water, I believe, ninth in my age group, I believe, and then had a quick T1, 3 minutes in and out onto the bike, and my power meter was not reading correctly. I was pushing like 190, 200, but going like 27 miles per hour for a hot second there. Um, I'm not sure what really happened with that. I think recently I just realized I can calibrate my power meter's crank length to 155, which is the crank length I run. Um, and that's been throwing off my data a little bit. So I don't know how realistic that number is, but I ended up averaging 213 for the bike, but going 219, which which is like crazy. I don't that
Wait,
doesn't
going 219, that you average 213, but no, your miles per hour. What was your miles per hour?
I averaged 23.9 miles per hour
There you go.
at
Yeah.
213 watts, which
Yeah, you
is
definitely push more power than what
yeah,
you're saying. Certainly.
yeah,
And PDA is like 0.200. But yeah.
yeah. So, you know, I wish I really had some power number on that because I was cooking. I was feeling really good. It's my best bike split to date. And I felt so strong the whole entire way. I A couple things I did differently is I added more sodium and more water. So I doubled my sodium intake per hour on the bike and increased my water intake by 10 ounces. So per hour, I had 105 grams of carbs, 100 or 1,250 milligrams of sodium, and 40 to 45 ounces of water per hour on the bike, which really, really helped set me up for a good run. Um, I definitely realized the past couple of weeks that I lose way, way more fluids than what I've been replacing. Like 30 ounces an hour is not cutting it. Um, so I came off the bike feeling great. And yeah, coming coming off of the bike, I saw another MVDM athlete. He was like, "Oh, you're in ninth place. Shout out to Sean. It was nice meeting you, dude." And at that point, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. Like, it'd be great if I could secure top 10. Like, I should, try to pick up the pace a little bit." But I remember my final workout leading up to this and um my runoff, I kept the first like interval nice and easy, like super, super easy. And that led me to have such a great what was the workout again? I'm sorry. I'm
It
like
was
all
three
over the
by eight
place.
minutes. It was well, I think it was 3 by 8 minutes, right?
3 by 8
Yeah.
minutes off the bike
And you
at
averaged
7
like
point.
8 minutes, 7:30, and then like you run like low seven for that last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I I kept my heart rate for the first 8 minutes during this workout at about no more than 155. The second interval, no more than 160. And then the third interval was just let it loose, see how we're feeling. And I crushed it. Like Parker said, 8 minutes for the first interval, 7:30, and then like low 7:50, like 7:15. And I kind of did the same thing off of the bike at Sandusky. I averaged the first 4 miles about 8 minutes. I was really, really holding back, just trying to keep it easy, get my legs underneath of me. And then right at 4 miles, looking at my splits, it just 4 miles and then boop, 720, 716. And I kind of fell off a little bit towards the end there to be expected. But I ended up running my best half marathon ever and also my 70.3 runoff as well. I should have said that in reverse. But I ended up averaging 727 off of the bike for 13 miles, which like I felt so great about. I ended up overall 13th out of 120th in my age group. And then my best overall finish to date as well, 54th out of over a little bit over 1,300 people. And I got a roll down spot to 70.3 World Championships, which I was not present to accept because I had to drive back home.
But
Did
Jake,
you
you're planning on doing Nice anyway, right? Or you want to
Yeah,
qualify?
I'm going to qualify for Nice at
There you go.
Maryland.
Yeah.
and wait, Jake, so are you gonna be 1824 or 2529?
25, 29.
Okay, we're gonna have to compete for our
Yeah.
slot.
Yeah. I know.
That's
I feel like Michael, you'll probably get one.
I don't know. We'll see. I was like it was I'll save it for the end about Lake Placid at the end at the roll down. It was a little bit soul crushing. But
Yeah.
I was like fuck. But yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully all three, me, you, and Seid get a slot to Nice. That would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And yeah, I just have a question, Jake. So I know during your past two, so your Ironman and then your half at Eagleman that you had like foot problems, and we were last time we were talking it was like probably because of the elastic laces or the shoes. Did you switch any of that for the run or?
So I kept my elastic laces on, but
Mhm.
I loosened them up as much as I could at the bottom of my foot. Um, I don't know if that was necessarily the problem that caused it, but I I I mean, it certainly didn't act up. I mean, I've been going to physical therapy for the last 6, 7 weeks. So that's definitely helped. But it's so weird if it was the elastic laces putting too much pressure on my tendon, if that actually caused it or not.
Mm.
Because that's such a weird thing to happen,
Yeah.
especially so acutely during a race. Like you would think that I would have problems during training, leading up to the race, but it's literally just happened both times during the race, which is super bizarre.
And then what? I know you touched on your nutrition for the bike, but then also, so what carb sources did you use for the bike? And then also, what was your? Did you take any gels for the run? I think you took some Precision Fuel gels. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. So I had one PF gel an hour on the bike with 3 servings of raw fuel. And then on the run, I had one PF gel, about every 3 to 4 miles. I think in total I had maybe 90 to 120. I kind of lost track. Um, and then I had two 250 milligram salt pills on the run, which looking back, I probably should have taken a little bit more sodium on the run. But I was feeling pretty good. So I feel like that, it could have gone either way. And then as far as water, I just drank as much water as I could. I would fill up my little handheld at 16 ounces in between aid stations and try to drink, at least half of it before I made it to the next aid station. So I was you know, trying to shoot for like 30 ounces of water an hour on the run. And that was definitely, I think, setting myself up on the bike with proper sodium and proper fluids was huge for my run performance.
Perfect.
Jake,
Yeah, that's what we always say. We always say feel the run for the bike, or feel the bike for the run rather. So good job.
Jake, I had a question on your bike. So, what was your initial reaction when you noticed your power was a lot lower than you expected? And how did you adjust in the moment of, instead of getting discouraged about your watts being lower than probably what you were targeting, did you just ride to RPE or were you looking at heart rate? What did you use at that time?
That's actually such a great question because you made me just think back to Eagleman. The same thing happened at Eagleman. I got on the bike, my heart rate was jacked up from the swim, and I was trying to get it down. I was pushing my goal power, which was like 220, 230. But it felt so hard. And then I dropped down to like 200 and it felt it felt where I was supposed to be. And I got really discouraged in that moment that I saw that my heart rate was like 160 and I was pushing, you know, 235, which on the trainer, I know I'm pushing 235. My heart rate's in like low 140s, high 130s. So like I was like mentally just already out of Eagleman. Like I just totally lost, you know, lost it for myself because of that. Where in Sandusky, I saw that my power was reading low, but I was like, I don't care because I want to get my heart rate under control first. Like I'm gonna take a second and just get my heart rate back down to like at least under 150, and then we'll settle in and try to get it lower. Because I decided I was gonna go off of me and Parker decided we're gonna actually go off heart rate this race instead of pace and power. But
Good.
as I kind of settled into like 145 beats per minute, I noticed I was going, 24.5 to 25 miles per hour on some segments, even 27 miles per hour. And I was like, wow, if I'm going this fast, like, who cares, like, what my power is?
Yeah.
So I kept it super relaxed. I made sure my heart rate stayed nice and controlled. And I just didn't really care about power. I just kept it, relatively easy. So
And
I was,
another thing that Jake and I have been working on is your cadence. Is you try to keep your cadence up a bit, and I think that also played a role in how your legs felt coming off the bike. I've noticed recently I've been trying as well to keep my cadence a bit higher, around that target goal race watts, and I found that that helps just keep the legs feeling a little bit fresher. So I'm usually riding between 75 and 80, but recently I've been trying to up it or closer to that 85, and I think that's helped me as well as you, Jake. Would you agree?
yeah, absolutely. I've been riding at like 90 on all of my intervals on the bike and everything. Because normally I'm just grinding away at a low gear during intervals, which is great for developing strength on the bike and everything. But like, it also needs to be race specific as well. So you need to be hitting those target race cadence as well, which you would ride during a race. Now some people, I feel like they can probably, grind away at 75 for 2.5 hours and run fine off of a bike. But when I'm, up in that 90, high 80s, low 90s cadence, getting off that bike, my legs they don't feel like they've been taxed at all. They feel fresh. Which is a great feeling to get off the bike and your legs are feeling like they didn't even do work all day. So,
Yeah, I think for anyone listening that doesn't have a lot of race experience, I think taking note of what Jake did and not falling victim to your technology, because as much as we rely on our heart rate, power meters, our bike computers to tell us, where we are, or how we feel, it's always good to at least fall back on rate of perceived exertion and like what feels hard and what feels easy from training. So in the event that you get to a race and whether it's your power meter or let's say your bike computer just won't turn on, like you still have to race. You can't just like say like, oh, like I just can't do it today without my bike computer. Like technology is always going to be a problem, or you're going to have a mechanical issue out there. And so I think it's good to be able to race on that RPE and just yeah, go by feel sometimes.
I would agree. Speaking of going off of RPE and feel and whatnot, Mike, you want to start talking about your race?
Yeah, sure thing.
Well, wait, really quickly, Jake, what's next for you?
oh, I got Ironman Maryland coming up September 21st with Mike and Seid.
Oh,
Actually, before we move on to, I wanted to ask Jake, like, how do you feel today versus how do you feel today versus how you felt, say, 2 days post Eagleman?
Well, the day after Eagleman, I was in the pool swimming, wanting to have a second chance to race again. Because I was like super unsatisfied. I was super, super hungry for redemption. Um, so I just wanted to get back out there and prove that I can have the race that I know I can put together. And you know, be the athlete that I know I can be. And I did that at Ohio. I don't think I said I ended up going 4:33, which is a 12-minute PR, which is also 17 minutes faster than what I did Eagleman 6 weeks earlier. But today, while yeah, I'm still like I still have like now I need to refocus on Ironman Maryland, but I'm not like itching to prove myself again. Like I know what I'm capable. I know I can do it. Now I just need to refocus and work on building up to Ironman Maryland. Um, so while I don't have the same like drive that I did after Eagleman because of how I performed, I'm still, it's a different drive. It's
Yeah. It's like you're happy with your performance, but and you still have something coming up. So you're being smart about it. You're not like, gonna get back into training and go immediately hard because you want to prove something. Like you had a great performance, you're gonna take your necessary recovery, and then you're gonna build into Maryland and be smart about it.
yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, congrats on the PR.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your PR.
Several PRs on the day. And it's your first time you PR. All right, so yeah, Lake Placid. I got up to Lake Placid Wednesday before the race. Um, Thankfully, we had already done a training camp. Parker, Jake, and I went up to Lake Placid in May, and we got a pretty good feel for the course. They did actually change the course slightly from when we were there in May. They made adjustments to the bike and the run course. Um, and from what I heard from people that did the race prior year, the changes they made kind of made it a little bit slower. They added another hill on the run, and then the like loop they added to the bike was quite slow. It was a kind of a rolling hill section. Uh, but Lake Placid was gorgeous. Um, Once I got up there, it like I was basically taking things really easy. And I would say that week leading into the race, I probably got my best sleep ever before a race. So I recently got a sleep mask, and that's been helping me fall asleep when it is still light outside. So I was forcing myself to go to bed before the race each day before the race by like 7, 8 p.m. And then on race night, I went to bed at 5:55, woke up at 2:50, and ended up getting, I think it was 7 hours and 40 minutes of sleep. So I've never gotten more than probably 6 hours of sleep before a race. So that was huge. Um, and
And actually,
then
how was your HRV morning of?
morning
You
of, it was good. It was like 90 something, like it was back to like above baseline. But the whole week of the taper, I got a little bit panicked because my heart rate variability was like really, it was low. It was below baseline like the whole week, and I'm like, how is this possible? I'm not even really working out that hard. But then I was looking up some stuff from Dan Plews on his HRV research, and he said that during a taper week, it's not uncommon for athletes to see like depressed HRV values because of the lack of aerobic volume. Um, and like if you're used to training a lot and then all of a sudden you take that away, I guess it has something to do with like decreased blood plasma volume. So yeah, I kind of just chalked it up to that, and I was like, it'll rebound by race day, and sure enough, it did. Like the 2 days before the race, it got back to normal. Um, and for me too, before a race, I'm like Parker, I don't like to eat out. I think the last day I ate out was maybe, I think it was Wednesday when we got, it was Thursday actually. I went to dinner Thursday with my mom, and then Friday and Saturday, I eat the same thing for lunch and dinner, and then same thing, like same breakfast meal each day. Like breakfast, I was doing toast with peanut butter, banana, and honey. And then for lunch and dinner, I would just do pasta with olive oil, a little bit of spinach and chicken, and plenty of salt as well. And then that's all I did, and kept it really simple. And the day before the race, I decided not to have any caffeine. I don't usually like taper down my caffeine intake, uh, because I feel like I need it to survive.
Mhm.
But the day before the race, I was like, I want to be able to fall asleep tonight. And I know if I take any caffeine, I'll probably be somewhat jittery. So no caffeine at all. And then, yeah, race day. Woke up at 2:50, immediately went to the kitchen, grabbed a Red Bull, chugged the Red Bull to get
What flavor?
Juneberry. That's my favorite
Mm,
flavor.
yeah.
I had one of them to get the system moving, and then I started sipping. I probably had half of another one that I was just kind of sipping on while I had breakfast. Was out the door by 3:50, maybe 4 a.m. because transition opened at 4:30. But parking in Lake Placid is kind of a nightmare. Like if you don't get a parking, there's like one parking lot close to the race venue, and there's maybe 75 spots for cars. And if you didn't get in there, you had to go to the volunteer fire station or the elementary school and get bussed in. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like I want to have my car here so my parents can like go back to the car and drop all my stuff off after transition and swim start and everything. So got a good spot and had plenty of time. Like I was just sitting there for a little bit and went to transition, checked everything out. Everything was good with the bike. At least I thought. I found out later that some things went wrong, but um yeah, things were good. Put my bottles on, went back to the car, and then I just started doing like a shoulder mobility routine. So I found that when I swim in a wetsuit, my shoulder, like Jake was mentioning earlier, I end up getting like pretty tight in my shoulders, and I knew that for a 70.3, it's not too bad, but for the full Ironman, I was like, I need to make sure my shoulders are pretty loose going to this. So I was using like a Theragun and like a uh resistance band and just going through a whole bunch of mobility work. And actually I was outside my car like doing like arm swings, and I was going in like the backstroke direction, and some guy goes, "Hey, you're going in the wrong direction." And I was like, "You're not backstroking out there today?" And he laughed at that one. Actually, I saw a lot of people backstroking on the side. It was their first loop, my second loop, and I was like, oh boy, they're in for a long day. But so then I went down to swim start and it started raining on us. And I was like, every time I race lately, I feel like it's raining. I think like 4 of my last 5 races, it's poured rain on us. So got my wetsuit on quick, did a warm-up swim for it was like maybe 100 yards, just kept it very easy. Uh, then got up to swim start and I seated myself with the under 60-minute crew. I told Parker and Seid and the guys that I thought I was capable of swimming 60 minutes, but I didn't know if it would be worth it for me to try and uh, overwork myself to do that. But then on race morning, I felt great. I lined up right next to James Crosby and Sean Fenoff, and they both told me they were swimming 54 and 55, and they actually swam exactly what they said they were going to swim. And I was like, yeah, you guys go ahead, like just ahead of me, and I'll just try to stay on your feet. Uh, and so I ran into the water a little bit too ambitiously, like dove in and smacked my stomach right on the bottom of the lake. And like I don't know if I hit my chin, but something happened and my goggles just filled with water and like went up on my forehead. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst like dive in I've ever had in a race. And figures it's in my first full. So for the first like 20 seconds, I was like trying to get the water out of my goggles and I'm like flailing around and I'm getting hit from behind because everyone's like running in after me. But I got the water out and the first lap was great. I fought as hard as I could to stay on the buoy line. So at Lake Placid, for anyone that's never done the race or doesn't know about it, there is a buoy line at the bottom of the lake. It's like a white cable that you can actually see the entire time while you're swimming, if you're close enough to it. If you're maybe like 2 yards to the left or to the right of it, you're not going to see it. So you have to be like right on it. And everyone like really fights to be on that line because then you just don't have to sight at all. So I was swimming and it's like it was almost to the point where like you would like run into the sight buoys. And it was perfect that way. And so the first loop, I was able to stay on the buoy line the whole time. I will admit, I did look at my watch in the swim, not just at the Aussie exit. Like I was swimming and I was like, this feels pretty easy right now. And there was a guy that I kept tapping his foot. And I was like, should I surge ahead of him and just get out and like maybe pull like there was 2 or 3 guys that I was like with the whole time on the second half of the first loop. And then my watch lapped and I saw it was like 650 or so for like the whatever that current 500 yards I was in. And I was like, nah, I don't need to try and swim any faster than this. This is plenty fast right now and I'm on a good pace. Got out of the Aussie exit, saw I was 29 flat, and I was like, oh yeah, we're going sub 60 today. The boys are going to be excited. So the second loop, though, when they come out of the Aussie exit, they started us just right of where all the other age groupers were going. And the problem is the buoys are on your right. They started us right of the buoy line. And
Huh.
normally you're supposed to keep the buoys like on like the inside. But the first like 2 or 3 buoys on the second lap, I just swam to the right of it. And I guess the rule is you just have to make sure you get around the turn buoy and keep the buoy on like the turn buoy on the inside. So I was on the inside for a while, and then I had to kind of cut wide to get around a lot of the like the back half of the slower age groupers. And it was like a minefield, like weaving in and out of people. Uh, a lot of elbows and kicks were thrown to get around, and I felt bad hitting people like when I swam through them, but I think I navigated it pretty well. So my first half was 29:05 and my second loop was 29:57. So both loops were technically Ironman 70.3 PRs. I
Mhm.
was talking to Ezra about that after, and I did swim a 29 once at Eagleman 2 years ago, but there was a down current on the back half, so I don't really count that. It's kind of a cheese swim.
It's funny you
Uh,
say that. My 70 quote unquote 70.3 swim PR would actually be from Ironman Texas last year. I think when I swam just under sub, I think I swam like a high 29 for the first half of the Ironman Texas swim.
yeah. It's funny how that happens, but I feel like my pace honestly doesn't change very much from half Ironman to Ironman, at least swim pace. But I think what I learned though from doing that is I can go out much harder in a 70.3 swim and not be too concerned about it. So my next 70.3, I will be attempting to swim threshold the entire time. Or what feels like threshold, and we'll see what happens. Transition, it was a long transition. It was almost a half mile to go from the lake over to the Olympic skating oval where we had transition for bike and run. No issues though. Like my heart rate was really jacked up. It was like average 174 for the transition. I was like, oh boy, this is even higher than it was in Eagleman. But I think it was because the run was so much longer. Got on the bike, felt pretty good. I mean, I knew my heart rate was going to be high, and for the first 40 minutes, it was up above like 165, and I tried not to get too panicked about that, and I knew there was a big descent coming in Keene. So once you get past like the first 14 miles are really slow. It's all climbing. I think my average pace was like 17 miles an hour. And I was like, oh boy, we are in for a long day. Like I don't remember it being this slow, but it was. And then I got to the Keene descent, and everything was fine. Like my heart rate dropped because I was not pedaling at all. And I was just trying to navigate, but it was raining on us, and my visor I could not see like at all. So I felt like I was like bringing my hand up, like acting like a windshield wiper to like get the rain off my visor, and I could see on the descent because I looked down at my computer and I think I got up to about 45 to 48 miles an hour. And like doing that in the rain is a little scary. And then, when you clamp the brakes, like you can hear the disc brakes like squealing. I was like, oh boy, just don't crash, don't crash.
Mhm.
And the first loop was good. Except for on a couple of the hills early on, I shifted down to my small chainring, and then when I got back, crested over the hill, shifted up to the big chainring, my chain fell off the outside. Like I haven't had that happen ever. And I was wondering, like, maybe it was the rain. I had no idea what caused it. I haven't even really had a chance to look at my bike since then, but I did ride yesterday and went through all the gears. Of course, did not have a single problem on my easy ride yesterday. Uh, so at that point, the second time my chain fell off, I made the decision to do the whole rest of the bike in the big chain ring only. So that was like I don't know, mile 40 that I made that decision. And there were some big hills coming back into Lake Placid. And I was like, this is why we do big gear work. Mark for this.
You're a boss, baby. Yeah.
Big gear work in for the next 80 miles or 82 miles, I get, or no, not 80 miles, 72 miles. We're gonna do the next 72 miles in the big chain ring only. And yeah, the first split was good. It was 240 normalized watts on the first loop. Got to the second loop. Felt okay for a little while, and then I did have to pee. Couldn't bring myself to pee on the bike. I could not relax my body. I've not perfected that art yet.
Actually, really
Was
quick, I think the reason why you couldn't was because you've been making your bike look so pretty, and you've been sending us pictures that just like in your mind subconsciously you couldn't get yourself to do it. I can't do this on this baby.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't pee on this. Like, and I also like my emergency bottle is like my arrow bottle with carbs. And I'm like, if I need that, I don't want to pee on that. Like, that's pretty gross. So, yeah, I couldn't pee. At mile 75, I was like, this is unbearable. And I couldn't even like stay an arrow at that point because it just was like putting pressure on my bladder. I thought there was an aid station at the farthest point out on the course. There wasn't. I just totally screwed that up. So then I had to wait from mile 75 till 92 and had to pull over at an aid station. And most aid stations, they have the porta potties like right on the road, right? This one, I'm yelling to the volunteers. I'm like, where's the porta potties? Where's the porta potties? And they're like, oh, it's like down the road and to the right. Like I had to actually make a turn off course, go down a little hill, put my bike on a bike stand, and then go to the urine or to the porta potty. And I think I peed for like 2 minutes straight. Like that was the longest pee of my life. I was like, come on, like just go get this over with. And then I actually looked like such a noob because I was walking my bike back up the hill because I couldn't get my feet clipped in and like I wasn't in a low enough gear to get going again. So it's like walking my bike, got back on and then hammered it home for the last what 20 miles. And I actually felt good the last 20 miles. Like I was like, finally I got this pain to go away. Got on the run, was feeling great. Legs were honestly, my legs felt the freshest they've ever felt for like a run off after a really long bike. It didn't feel like any of that like wobbliness. I think part of that too is just the crowds coming out of transition. It was like there were so many people, it was nuts. And my parents were right there. They're like yelling my name. I was so excited. And as I run out, I see Chris Leiferman starting his second loop. And I'm like running side by side with him for about 30 seconds. And it was so cool. And then he just took off. And but thankfully it's all downhill for the first, it's like downhill and flat for the first 3 miles. So I'm like cruising. I'm looking down. My heart rate is under like 155, which is like where my target heart rate was. But my pace was 7 flat, I think, the first mile. And I'm like, oh boy, like I'm gonna crush this today. And I knew I was doing the math in my head too at the end of the bike, because I kind of got bored. I was like, all right, I know what my swim was, I know what T1 was, the bike what do I need to run to go sub 10? And I was like, I might be able to do sub 10, which was kind of just like a goal in the back of my mind. I didn't know if it would be possible on this course. And I soon found out that the run course would eat me up a little bit and show me that I wasn't going to be able to run sub 10. But I went out as if I was running that pace to go sub 10, the pace that I had calculated. And then at mile 3, my stomach turned and I was like, oh no, I have 23 miles to go. I'm gonna die. And I was like, why did I do this? Like, why have I chosen the long distance race? Like, I should have just stuck to halves. Like, I honestly hit a dark place on River Road that like out and back because you get past the ski jumps, you turn left, and then it's just like this felt like a never ending out and back for me. And I was looking at my paces, and I actually those 2 or 3 miles where you go out and back, I slowed down to like 840 or 850 a mile. And I was like, I can't take in carbs, my stomach's off, the negative thoughts are seeping in, like, and I guess like I'll just like be honest and real with everyone. There were a lot of questions that I asked myself out there where I was like, why did I think I could do a full? Should I just quit the sport after this? Like do one full and then just be done with it for good? Like, and I was like, no, I've invested too much in my bikes.
Dude, I think
Because like I have too many carbon plated shoes to do that. Like I was like, there's too much investment. Like I can't do that. But
I've had
no,
those same. It's funny that you mentioned that because I've had those same thoughts whenever something's going bad, like at
yeah,
Eagleman, like sometimes in your head you're just like why do I even do this? Like this is so painful. This sucks so much. Like this is terrible. Why do I do this to myself? Like should I even keep doing it? But then you get to the finish line and then you're like you totally forget all those thoughts that you just had.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
That's what
um,
happened to me at Texas, except I didn't make it to the finish line.
you were also throwing up though too, which is also like I have thankfully not gotten to the point of throwing up in a race. Maybe that means I'm not racing hard enough, but I just yeah, I
You
feel
ate
like
too
if
few
I
rice
started
cakes before.
Yeah. Yeah.
if I started throwing up in a race, I feel like I would be much closer to pulling the plug on it because once I start throwing up, I cannot stop. Um, but yeah, like my head was flooded with negative thoughts for at least 2 to 3 miles there, and it's not, you know, it's tough to turn things around. Like you have to really go through a lot of self-talk to be like, no, it'll be okay. Like you will turn this around. Um, just think positive thoughts. Like it's easier said than done. And thankfully, golf is a little bit similar. And I was kind of like remembering back to plenty of golf tournaments where I would have a horrible start and then it's like you can't give up. You never know what's gonna happen. Like and sure enough, like I had most of my golf career, I would always get off to a pretty rough start and then turn it around and like play like a completely different person on the back nine or like the last 12 holes. Like it was kind of weird how it paralleled to triathlon. But yeah, once I got to like River Road is really not that bad. It's just a bunch of like slight rolling hills. So in my mind at that time, I was like, I'm doing 850s and I haven't even gotten to the hills yet. I'm like, I am torched. But then when I got to the first hill, I made it up like the ski jump hills there. It was only a quarter mile, and I was like, huh, that actually didn't feel as bad as I thought. Um, maybe if I just take this mentally one hill at a time and just focus on like the phrase like running the mile you're in, I'll be able to get through this. And then sure enough, my pace started to pick up on the flats. Like I got back up to like 8:15, 8:20 pace on a couple of those. And then for the rest of the race, I stayed pretty consistent around that 8:30. Like when I would find a hill, like yes, I was climbing the hill much slower, like say 9:30. Even I think the Lisa G hill the second time around, I was like looking at my watch and I'm like, oh yeah, this is like 10-minute pace. Like I'm just shuffling up this hill, but it's kind of to be expected when you're 20 plus miles deep into the marathon going up a, I don't know, probably 6% grade. Like you're not gonna hit that fast or strong. Um, but yeah, the first loop, Parker, you're not gonna be excited about this one. Uh, I took in approximately almost zero carbs on the first 13 miles of the run. Because my stomach was off, I tried to sip a little bit of a Coke at an aid station in that first loop, and I was like, nope, like you're gonna throw this up. And I took a gel at 12 and a half miles, thinking that, okay, yes, you need to get down carbs. You need to force it down. My stomach was so bad, and I saw my parents at that point. They're like, "How are you feeling? Like, you look great." And I'm like, "I feel like talk to me right now." And then I kind of was like, okay, it's not that bad. And I started forcing down carbs. I had like so I carried 3 bottles with me on the run. I had 2 soft hydration flasks from Precision Fuel and Hydration that were one was full of electrolytes, one was full of 60-gram carbs and electrolytes. And then I had also like a Nathan like handheld bottle that had electrolytes in it. Down the 2 electrolytes on the first loop, and I saved the carb bottle for the last loop because I knew that, I have to get in some carbs. I can't be Dan Plews out here. Haven't practiced that enough.
Adaptation.
Yeah. But I was running at a low heart rate, so I was like probably not, I was probably near like peak fat oxidation out there. I don't know, but
You're taking
I
some ketones.
yeah, I
Yes,
needed
you
a
did.
gypsy to Seid. What the hell?
You
Should have
did.
carried them on me. But yeah, I started taking in water and Coke at every aid station, finished my 60-gram carb bottle, and felt good, got a second wind. Didn't really feel like I was hitting the wall until about 23 and a half miles when I was running back downhill by like the Lake Placid golf course. And my quads, I was just this is terrible. The quads are ripped apart right now from these hills. And then, you get back to town, you're filled with the energy of the crowd, and I'm like, okay, like I can do it. I have one more out and back to do on Mirror Lake Drive. It's really not that bad. And yeah, I think the 25th mile, I was like 9-minute, 9:15 pace. Like I felt like I could not physically go any faster than that, even though I was going like it felt like a good pace. And then once I got to the end of the 25th mile, I was like, all right, let's just go send it. Like it's mostly downhill. So picked up the pace. I think I closed around like a 7-minute pace when I was like rounding the oval near the finish line, and felt good and crossed the line, and it was a good day. There was a lot of dark thoughts, but a lot of positives that came from it, and pretty excited about how things wrapped up in the end.
Mhm. Yeah,
I'll, I'll oh sorry on the
that
bike.
finish line was so sick.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then also I know you started your run recap with like you were saying you were with Chris, and I was like, oh my God, this is so hype because the stream was right on Chris then. I was like, look at Mike, he looks so good. I was on
Yeah,
my timer and I was like, damn, look at Mike, he's like crushing it. And then like like a minute later, Chris just gone. But I was like, you could just keep seeing you in the background. I was like, let's go. He's keeping up. He's doing great.
Yeah, there was no chance. I think for a split second it crossed my mind. I was like, maybe I could keep up with Chris Leiferman here. That would be awesome. And then I was like, nope, not even like
What
yeah, I got down the hill a little bit and I was like, nope.
what was your bike and run split?
My bike split was 521, which is like 20.4, 20.5 miles per hour or something like that. Once it dipped below 21, I was like, I don't even want to look at this. Like this is just disgusting right now. It's like and I actually for almost the entire bike ride, I used the Climb Pro feature on my Wahoo. Because I was like, I need to know what hills are coming. And like, I did know the course, but like, I didn't know it. Like, I know some 70.3 courses, like kind of like the back of my hand. Like, I know every turn or every hill. There were just so many freaking hills out there. I was like, I need to know when the inclines and the declines are so I can, take in fuel or rest, on the descents. And I really didn't pedal on many of the descents. I just was trying to play it smart, take the recovery where I could, and then just like hammer up some of the hills. Like it was a very like punchy bike ride, like surging, like I don't think there were many times where I was like actually pedaling at 240 watts, like what my normalized power was. It was like I'm going uphill doing 270 to 300, or getting out of the saddle and doing like 340, and then like coming down to like zero on the descents. Like it was very weird, not anything like you would think about in training. Like it's just such a challenging course with the hills, so it tests you. But I almost liked that because like you could just like coast for like 2-3 minutes down a descent, and then it's like, okay, just hammer hard for a couple minutes.
And now you did talk about your run nutrition, but how did you do on your bike?
Yeah, so on my bike I had prepared on my bike. I had 3 precision fuel gels. 2 of them were caffeinated, one was not. And then I had an SIS beta fuel gel in my bento box. I had 3 bottles of precision fuel and hydration, 32 ounces. It was 120 grams carbs in each bottle with 15 or 2,000 milligrams of sodium. And then I had my hydration bladder that's built into my bike. I just had electrolytes, which was a good move, just doing that. And then my Aero bottle was like my emergency carb bottle, and I had 48 grams of carbs and 600 milligrams of sodium, and it was with the raw fuel orange flavor. I didn't end up needing any of that emergency carbs, and I would say I kind of underfueled the bike. I ended up taking in about 450 grams of carbs total. I tallied it up after well, kind of knew like during the bike what my carb intake was. I finished all the like my 3 big bottles. I finished 3 precision gels. Um, yeah, and I think that totals up to 450. So it's like 85 grams of carbs per hour is what I actually took in. I was planning on 100. Now, I felt okay, and I think part of it was on the second loop, the urge to pee so bad. I was like, I don't want to take in I don't want to drink much more. But I was forcing things down and probably wasn't making the situation any better, but I'm glad I did force myself to drink more. And I also did grab water bottles at quite a few of the aid stations and was using that to cool myself down, like drink a little bit of it and then just throw it out at the trash can. And then I think my last aid station, I did grab a bottle of water to just sip on. Just, after drinking a lot of sodium, drinking a lot of carbs, sometimes you're just craving plain water at that point. But I felt good and I've had that happen in training though. So like even though I was under fueled carb wise, I had many long bike rides in training where I just couldn't bring myself to get in 100, and I was usually around that like 80 gram mark, and I would still feel okay. Like I knew like 80 was like the minimum that I needed to get in. So I guess it's good. Like we always say, like practice your race day nutrition and training. And did that a ton of times. So that worked out.
And I think especially at that lower, Ironman intensity, fueling a bit on the lower, 80 and 85 grams is still not low per se, it's still a solid amount. So even though it was a little bit low for you, I think 85 grams is still more than enough. Or maybe not more than enough, but an adequate amount per hour for especially, yeah, with your target power and whatnot. So no, I think that was definitely yeah, not too
Yeah.
Still better than 2 bottles of Mountain Dew, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
certainly. And then interesting enough, like one thing I wanted to note on the run that, Seid told me about this a long time ago, when I
Oh, the
started the
tingling, right?
well, the tingling, thankfully I didn't get that. I did get like the runner's high feeling. I feel like anytime I ran by the crowd and like people were yelling, like I got pretty excited and like you just like feel that like runner's high. But no, Sade told me a long time ago, and I honestly did not believe you until this race. I have to be honest, Sade, like you told me that you could not get your heart rate up in Ironman Florida. Like on the run, like your heart rate is just so much lower than you were targeting. And every time I've run a 70.3, I have to be careful of heart rate drift and like having it get out of control. So when I got onto the run and like my heart rate was not going above like 152, 153, I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, there's no way. This like feels way harder, but my heart is like saying, yeah, this is fine. Like you can go harder. And like seeing that, like, because I have the heart rate gauge on my Garmin, seeing it like in the blue range, but I think the way I have it set is like anything under like, 155 is like staying in like the blue. I was like, this is not possible. Like, there's no way. And even 20 plus miles deep into the run, I'm like, how the hell is my heart rate not got up to threshold at this point? And I couldn't get it up any higher. And I'm glad it didn't because I felt fine. Like I felt like I could, do more if needed. But like Parker, you said too, it could be, fitness, it could be fatigue, probably both. It's just a weird phenomenon that I'm not used to from racing 70.3s.
That
Yeah,
happened to
what
me.
Natasha was saying was like it's such a long day. Like when your heart rate starts to like drift down, it's just like your body's just shutting down. It's like it's not really fitness at that point. It's just you've been doing
Yeah.
physical activity for 9 hours. Your heart rate doesn't want to be above that like zone anymore. It's like your body's telling is like giving signals to like your heart to like slow down because your body
Yeah.
wants to slow down, but like you just can't. It's just like it's so frustrating. I like that was the one frustrating thing at Florida. I was like, I want to run harder and I just couldn't. Like heart rate just kept going lower and lower.
Yeah, it's so weird at like what point. I should really take a look and like to the data and see like what point during the race where did pace change and where did heart rate change? Like was there an inflection point in heart rate at any point? And was it 7 hours in? Was it 9.5 hours in? Something like that. But the last loop I did actually get my heart rate just up to just shy of 160. So I was like, okay, I have a little more in the tank. But yeah, I'll be back in 2025. I'm
So
gonna
what's
sign.
next for you? You have Maryland?
I do have Maryland. Yep, gonna go race with Sade and Jake and have some fun. We're probably all going to wear our bucket hats. And
Yep.
Jake, I have an extra one for you.
We'll
Sade,
take a banana
have one?
picture in transition.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely will.
A three-way banana picture.
Oh yeah, triple banana.
Uh, oh.
Sage's not gonna beat the allegations.
Yep, none.
Oh my God. Maryland's gonna be fun. Totally different race than Placid will be. I think it'll be might have to do a little heat prep going into that one.
Hmm.
Be completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna like I know you were saying like the low points of your race like that for me like I really get those points like throughout the whole swim honestly. So Florida like I'm like it's like 10 minutes into the day and I'm like why am I doing this like that's happened to me at Texas as well. I was like oh my God like why do I do this like I hate all of this why am I swimming right now? But then as soon as I get up so I'm like let's go. So Maryland is a pretty choppy and jellyfish swim so as soon as that's done it's gonna be a fun day. So, but the first hour to hour and 20, 25, hopefully 20, it's the worst, and you just have to get through it. But it's huge for you to like get through that on the run. It's like for me, it's like I know it's the first part of the day, it's gonna be miserable, just get through it and you're okay. But like when you're that like late into the day, you're like, oh, getting through that's huge.
Yeah.
Well,
And how about you, Jake? Do you feel that during an Iron, like certain parts of an Ironman? Like, where do you feel it? Is it on the bike or the run? I doubt it's probably on the swim for you since you
like
have.
low points.
Yeah, yeah. Where do you feel it?
So it's always the run. It's
Yeah.
always the run. It's never the bike. It's never the swim. Usually what happens is I get out of the swim, get onto the bike. I'm like, ah, great spot. I'm in a great spot, and then get passed by 50 people. Um, luckily Sandusky wasn't like that,
Yeah.
but normally it's been on the run like mile 7, and I'm like, why the hell do I do this? Like this hurts so bad. Like I'm so uncomfortable. Like I can't wait for this to be over. I just wanna, I'm looking forward to like that post-race Coke or something like that. Like, why do I sign up for these things? Like this sucks. Like I do all this work and I just suffer, but then it pays off. Um, so I didn't have that at Sandusky though, because I was like I was having such a great day. So and it feeds off of itself. So if you're talking negative to yourself, you're going to just kind of dig yourself deeper into that hole. And if you're feeling really good, you're going to be hyping yourself up the whole run. You're going to be able to finish strong. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like once you start talking or like have that negative self-talk, it's very hard to escape that. But when you do, it feels amazing. And you're like, what was I so worried about? And then it comes back.
Yeah.
Parker, how about you? When do you feel low
Yeah,
points?
I actually usually for me it's the night before. Or yeah, the night before, or like even like the morning of, or not even usually the morning of, but like the night before, it's sometimes like, oh, this is real now. Like I'm actually gonna be doing this tomorrow, and it's like why it's not really like I don't like doing it. It's like I just don't want to race. Like I'd rather be home and like in my bed, just tomorrow I just have, your typical, hard swim, 3 hour, 4 hour bike ride on the trainer, and then, a short run off, and then, text all the buddies and it's a good day. Whereas like tomorrow, like now it's like the real deal, now you're racing, you have, people are looking up to you. You have like these expectations that you want, and that's something that's kind of what screwed me at Texas. Something I've been trying to work on. But no matter how much you try to distance yourself from expectations and your performance and whatnot, it's always, I mean, that's why we do it. I mean, it's kind of ingrained in us. We want to perform the best, and we have these goals that we want to meet, and just trying to distance yourself from that. And that kind of what gets me, the night before is like, oh, I don't want to, like, it feels like my own race, and like I could race and like no one else would know about it. Like, great, this is awesome. But yeah, having kind of like the outside pressures and everything, definitely like the night before, and then actually kind of like saved the swim. It's like, because my watch still buzzes every 500 or whatever. And it's like when it's like, you think you've been swimming for so long, and then it's like only that's the second time it's buzzed, and like, oh, I still have 3,000 yards to go. But then yeah, usually coming out of the water, you'll hop on the bike, and if it's gonna be a good day, I can tell relatively quickly based on the leg seal, and then yeah, once I get to the run, if I can make it to the run, then it's yeah, that's kind of how I differ from you guys. Is the run? I always enjoy the run. Now maybe not like it doesn't like always feel good, but like in terms of, because I know that's kind of like that's my time to really start making up ground and really start pushing it. And so I always look forward to the run. Because that's always, and plus that's when I can finish too. So
Yeah, we can always bank on you to chase people down. That
uh,
was exactly what I saw coming in Muscle Man.
yeah.
Like instantly right up to second. But yeah, like I think a big thing too that I want to make a point, before we end the podcast too, is like having a support system. Like we joke around a lot and we call it the Wolf Pack. Like it's our group chat of me, Parker, Seid, Jimmy, and Jake. Unfortunately, Jimmy's not with us right now. Round out the Wolf Pack, but that group of guys, I thought about you guys a lot during the race, and I'm like, when I finished the swim under 60, I was like, oh, the guys are gonna be pumped. And then after I like did the bike, I'm like, this is a slow bike. Like I know for a lot of people it's gonna be slow, but I was like, oh man, you know what? Now I don't know if I'm gonna go under 10. And like I let that expectation kind of creep into my mind, and I went into this race with pretty much I say no expectations, but that was always in my mind, was like,
You always do. I mean, like I just, that's
it's
why we,
impossible to not let it creep in. And and then once I started running and I kind of abandoned that expectation, that's when I was like, you know what, it'll be like, I have these guys, I know they're all watching this right now, and if I can just finish this race strong, like they'll be pretty excited. It'll feel a lot better than me texting them after the race. Like I actually was in my mind when I was going through dark points, I was like, what would I say to the guys right now? Like, how would I text them after the race and be like, guys, like I blew up, like I couldn't handle the pressure, I couldn't handle the pain. So yeah, thought about that, and then yeah, it helped me get through it. So that was nice.
Yeah, when I made it into T2 and I hit my Garmin, it said 219, first sub 220 bike split I've had. I was like, oh yeah, group chat's gonna go crazy over this one.
Yeah. So a note to anyone out there, find yourself a support group, start a group chat, and race as if you're just trying to flex on your homies.
yeah, the key to success. All right. Now, before we wrap it up here, one more question for the both of you. I forgot to ask this the last race recap we did, but it's the most important question of them all. What was your post-race meal?
I immediately after the race, usually I don't want anything to eat after a 70.3, but after the full, I was like, give me all the food you got. I went and grabbed 2 slices of pizza from the post-race food tent and had a Coke with that. That Coke is like always a go-to after the race. So
And did you have anything? I know Lake Placid, when we went there's some good restaurants. Did you go to the Lake Placid pub or anything like that?
we actually went to the Mirror Lake Inn, which is a little bit through Main Street, and it's
I remember looking at that menu actually. Was it good?
amazing, really good. But by that point, um, my stomach had kind of turned a little bit, and I ate like half my dinner, and I was like, I'm just full, like I can't eat anymore. But it was really good, and I enjoyed it, and I took the leftovers home. But yeah, the great place. If anyone's ever up in Lake Placid, highly recommend the Mirror Lake Inn.
What was that pub that we ate up there?
I think it's called the Lake Placid
Lake
Pub.
Placid pub.
I've been ordering fish and chips recently because I got fish and chips there and it was the best fish and chips I've ever had. But
Yeah.
every time I get fish and chips, I'm like severely disappointed. But I keep ordering it because I keep thinking about it.
We gotta go for our training trip round 2 next year. Seid,
Yeah.
we're gonna drag you up there.
Yeah.
And there's a girl that raced for NVDM, Desiree, who she killed it. Second in her age group, female, 35, 39. I believe she got a Conus or a Nice slot. I think she's going to Nice. I'm pretty sure she is, or maybe she already had a slot, but either way, she crushed it. But she said to me after the race that she wants to come to our next training trip up in Lake Placid. She wants to work on her bike skills up on the hills. And
And
she's
Mike, I have
coached.
a question for you. So how does it feel to like beat Paul Felder, so a former UFC fighter? You did beat a really successful UFC fighter. How does that feel?
I
Must
was
feel good.
I was afraid that if he passed me on the run, that we were gonna have to square up right there. No, because of the way the course is structured with the out and backs, I saw him like gaining time on me because I forgot to look at his run split, but I'm pretty sure he's probably a better runner than I am. And I did see him creeping closer and closer. Like I knew, okay, I'm half a mile ahead of him, or I'm like, 3/4 of a mile ahead of him. But I think because of where I didn't realize how close it would be, like I got him by 3 seconds. But yeah, he was like half a mile behind me, or maybe a 3/4 of a mile behind because of probably where he started in the swim.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, felt good. Definitely wouldn't want to get in the octagon with him. Oh my goodness. Uh, yeah, and actually on that note, I'll leave one last thing. I did go to the roll downs. I wanted to see if I would get a Kona slot, and there were 5 spots in my age group. I was in ninth, and when they were doing the awards, only 4 guys went up to accept their awards. So I was like, oh, this is great. One of the guys did not show up in the top 5. Like I made a list of the names and I'm like trying to look up like who had Kona slots. Talked to 2 of the guys in the top 5 that did take their, awards, and one guy was not going to go. One guy had already taken a slot back in 2022 at Chattanooga, and he deferred it to Kona this year. So I was like, oh, great. There's 3 spots already that are gonna roll down. So I was like, I was talking with a kid in 5th place. He's like, you just basically need one more guy to not take a slot. And I'm looking around and like as they're doing the roll downs, like people are starting to like clear out, and I don't see that many people that look like they're in my age group. And they get to the last spot, they yell the guy's name, and like he doesn't raise his hand, doesn't say anything. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm actually gonna get a Kona slot. And like then he like came out of the crowd and he was like, no, no, I'll take the slot, I'll take the slot. And I was like, oh my God. I just immediately turned around and just walked to my car, just said nothing. I was like, I don't, I'm just, I'm, I was kind of crushed because I didn't think I would get a Kona slot, and then it got that close. I was like 1 spot away, and I was kind of crushed by it. But I texted Parker immediately, and I was like, yeah, I'm really hungry to get a Kona slot in 2026. We're gonna, over the next, well, I guess I have 1 year because I have to qualify next year for 2026. But I was like, we're gonna do everything over the next 2 years to get to Kona. So, and I know you boys will as well. Well, I'll be there hopefully.
Yes,
One
sir.
day. So there you guys go. Wait, so Jake, you never answered. Did you have fish and chips after the race, or?
Oh, no. I went to this place called Burgatory in Pittsburgh. So I had to drive back right after I left. I finished, grabbed myself out of transition, and drove back to Pittsburgh, where I was picking up my girlfriend to drive back home. And we stopped at this place called Burgatory that has like burgers and milkshakes. So I got a double smash burger with a Oreo peanut butter pie milkshake and ate it in one whole bite.
Yep.
That's huge.
Well, that sounds like a delicious way to end this episode. Say it. Anything else you want to say? Any ask?
No, I'm good.
Oh, well, there you guys go. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Once again, huge congrats to Jake and Mike on their accomplishments this past weekend. And yeah, well, make sure to follow those 2 along, as well as Seid for Ironman Maryland. That's going to be exciting. I sadly won't be racing there, but I'm definitely going to be coaching them. So hopefully they do well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Oh, and please leave a rating and review. We've been asking people to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. So if you could help that, helps get the word out about the podcast. So we would truly, truly appreciate it. All right. See you guys.
See ya.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Try Hard podcast. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you could share with others and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can either DM us on Instagram, leave a comment on YouTube, or message us through the Spotify app. Lastly, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, the Naperville Acupuncture Center. If you ever find yourself in the Chicagoland area and are dealing with some aches and pains, I cannot recommend Frank and Angela enough. They do an amazing job over there, and I promise you will leave feeling so much better. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you guys back here next week.